It is the policy of the state to value the dignity of every individual, enhance the development of its human resources, guarantee full respect for human rights, and uphold the dignity of workers, employees, applicants for employment, students, or those undergoing training, instruction, or education. It is likewise the policy of the state to recognize the role of women in nation building and ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. The state also recognizes that both men and women must have equality, security, and safety, not only in private, but also on the streets, public
Hi.
spaces, online, workplaces, and educational and training institutions. Towards this end, all forms of sexual harassment in the employment, education, or training environment, including gender-based sexual harassment in streets, public spaces, or even online, are hereby declared unlawful. Ladies and gentlemen, our salutations to our viewers on this YouTube channel. My name is Michael Hermano, your facilitator for today's discussion. But before anything else, to give you a little glimpse of our discussions today, let's watch the video first.
Hi. You must be the new girl.
Hi, you must be Mr. Russo. I'm Kat.
Yes, that is me. But you can call me Harvey.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm your new assistant.
We don't shake hands here. We hug.
Oh, okay. Is that your wife?
Oh, yeah. But let's not focus on her. I want to know more about you. Tell me about your goals.
Well, it's my dream to be the head of an agency too, sir. Like you.
Wow, that's good. Just remember, in this business, it's not about what you know, but about who you know. So, just make me happy, and I'll make sure you get ahead in no time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There she is. Congratulations, baby. Oh, wow.
Baby, it has always been your dream to work for this company, and I couldn't be more proud of you. Honey, what's wrong? Did something happen at work?
It was good, except for my boss. He's a little creepy.
How so?
Just the way he looks at me. I feel like he's always checking me out. But it's probably just in my mind. He has a wife.
That's not good. Baby, if he is like this on your first day, it is only going to keep getting worse.
I know. But Harvey is one of the top executives in the agency. I need him to get ahead.
Baby, look at me. I'm telling you this as your mother. You are so smart. And you don't need him or anyone to succeed.
Thanks. But in this business, it's not what you know. It's who you know. I'll see how it goes.
Something smells good here.
Oh yes, French vanilla, my favorite.
No, I wasn't talking about the coffee. I was talking about you. You smell like a flower.
Thank you, sir.
Anyhow, Are you coming to the company dinner tonight?
Oh, no. I didn't know. And I actually have plans.
Missing a company event. That doesn't look good. I thought you wanted to get ahead.
Yes, of course, I do. I'll be there.
Don't forget, dress to impress.
Hi. Where is everyone?
What? Am I not enough for you?
Oh no, I meant where are all the other employees? I thought this was a company dinner.
Yeah, they couldn't make it, which works out better for us. Champagne?
Harvey, you have a wife.
That doesn't matter. We'll keep this our little secret.
I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable.
Is that any way to treat your boss? I thought you wanted to get ahead. I could give you a promotion, you know?
You are so smart, and you don't need him or anyone.
Yes, I do want to get ahead, but not like this. I can succeed on my own.
I thought I told you, in this industry, it's not about what you know. It's about who you know.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't need you to be successful. I'm going to start my own agency, and I'm going to be even more successful than you.
Oh, you'll never make it in this industry.
Oh, yeah? Watch me.
Kat was devastated. She went home and cried to her mom over what happened. Meanwhile, Harvey was back to his same old ways and continued being inappropriate with his new assistant. The new assistant wasn't having it either and reported him to the police for sexual harassment. Over time, Kat regained her strength and started researching how to start her own business. Her career started going up while Harvey's started going down. He ended up in jail for sexual harassment and got fired from his job. He lost everything and had to start all over. Kat eventually started her own agency and became one of the most successful women in the industry. On the other hand, Harvey was having a hard time finding a new job because no other agency would hire him. Then one day, their paths crossed again.
You must be Harvey.
Yes, I'm here applying for the new open position.
Hi. Long time no see.
Kat? Ha! I had no idea you were the assistant at this agency. Oh, well, I'm here to see your boss.
Oh. Actually, I am the boss. And you can call me Miss Jackson.
Wow, I'm sorry. Well, I got fired from my last job, so I'm looking for work.
I'm sorry, but I don't think you'll be a good fit here. You see, in this industry, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I've called every agency in town to let them know all about you. Good luck to you, Harvey. You can see yourself out.
A recent study found that almost 50% of women have experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. That means almost 1 out of 2 women. And what's even scarier is a lot of researchers have found that that number is actually increasing every year. The difficult part about the issue is that the abusers are usually people in a position of power who use their power to take advantage of those in a lower position. But for women out there, what's important to remember is that you don't need any man to be successful. You're perfectly capable of being successful on your own. And to all the great men out there, you can also do your part in helping raise awareness to the issue, not only to protect your female coworkers, but your male coworkers as well, as sexual harassment happens to both men and women. I read an alarming stat that almost 90% of incidents go unreported because victims are too afraid of retaliation. If you are a victim of sexual harassment, please know, don't be ashamed of your story, as your story may be what inspires someone else to speak up as well. Hey, what's up, YouTube fam? It's Dar. I hope you love that.
All right. So the video that you just watched will give a partial view of the topic that we're going to discuss today. But before we proceed, let me first introduce my colleagues. So along with me are Ms. Rogem Rose Jimenez, Ms. Marian Ibanez, Ms. Narcisa Jaime, and Mr. Joey Ryan Amico. And we are the legal counsels tasked to discuss about an act declaring sexual harassment unlawful in the employment, education, or training environment, and for other purposes. And also the law which particularly defines gender-based sexual harassment in streets, public spaces, online workplaces, and educational or training institutions, and providing protective measures and prescribing penalties. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll be tackling first the Republic Act 7877, or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. Help me welcome Attorney Apple or Rogem Rose Jimenez to give us salient points of this law. To know more, just keep on watching.
Thank you, Sir Mike. The Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, or also known as RA 7877. Republic Act 7877, work, education, or training related and sexual harassment is committed by an employer, employee, manager, supervisor, agent of the employer, teacher, instructor, professor, coach, trainer, or any other person who, having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another in a work or training or education environment. It demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether the demand, request, or requirement for submission is accepted by the object of said act. The demand need not to be explicit or stated. Although it is true that RA 7877 calls for a demand, request, or requirement of a sexual favor, it is not necessary that the demand, request, or requirement of a sexual favor be articulated in a categorical, oral, or written statement. Now, how is sexual harassment committed? Sexual harassment can be work related or from the employment environment. First is that sexual favor is made as a condition in the hiring or in the employment, re-employment or continued employment of said individual, or granting said individual favors, compensation, terms, or of conditions, promotions, or privileges. The refusal to grant sexual favors resulting in limiting, segregating, or classifying the employee, which in any way would discriminate, deprive, or diminish employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affect said employee. The above acts would impair the employee's rights or privileges under existing labor laws, or it would result in an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for the employee. Sexual harassment can be found in an education or a training environment. It is committed against who is under the care, custody, or supervision of the offender, against one whose education, training, apprenticeship, or tutorship is entrusted to the offender, when the sexual favor is made a condition to the giving of a passing grade, or the granting of honors and scholarships, or the payment of a stipend, allowance, or other benefits, privileges, or considerations, or when the sexual advances result in an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for the student, trainee, or apprentice. The mandate of RA 7877 for work-related educational or training environment or institution is that the employer must provide the procedures for the resolution, settlement, or prosecution of acts of sexual harassment. The creation of a committee on decorum and investigation of cases on sexual harassment. And in the case of work-related environment, the committee shall be composed of at least one representative from the management, the union, if any, the employees from the supervisory rank, and from the rank and file employees. For work-related educational or training environment or institution, the committee shall be composed of at least one representative from the administration, the trainers, instructors, professors, or coaches, and students or trainees as the case may be. That is all for the Safe Spaces Act.
Thank you for your comprehensive discussion about RA 7877, Attorney Jimenez. Well, how about the penalties for the acts committed in violation of the said act? To answer that question, let's have Attorney Ibanez.
Thank you, Sir Mike. So for the penalties for the acts or omission committed in violation of RA 7877 or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, the law stipulates that a person found guilty of sexual harassment shall be penalized by imprisonment of not less than 1 month nor more than 6 months. So, it depends upon the qualifying circumstances that are actually present and your degree of participation in the commission of the offense. So basically, hindi siya kukulang ng 1 buwan at hindi siya lalagpas ng 6 na buwan. Also, the accused is obliged to pay a fine of not less than 10,000 pesos nor more than 20,000 pesos or both. This is what I am telling about, the degree of participation, because under the revised penal code, it is not only the principal in the commission of the offense that will be held liable to answer. Rather, accomplices and accessories can be criminally liable also. This particular law stipulates that any person who directs or induces another to commit any act of sexual harassment or who cooperates in the commission thereof by another without which it would not have been committed shall also be held liable under sexual harassment. So, halimbawa, si A inutusan ni B na hawakan ang legs ni C in exchange of a condition favorable to B. Kahit si B ang gumawa ng kilos, pwede pa rin makulong si A at magbayad ng damages. Lastly, damages resulting from sexual harassment may be separately and independently instituted also. So the employer or head of office, educational or training institution shall be solidarily liable for damages arising from the acts of sexual harassment committed in the employment, education, or training environment if the employer or head of office, educational, or training institution is informed of such acts by the offended party and no immediate action is taken. So this pertains to the institution of civil action under Rule 111 of the Revised Rule of Court. The commission of offenses under this law will not only make you criminally liable but also civilly liable. So the offended parties may not only cause your imprisonment but can also make you pay for the damages arising from the same act or omission through the institution of civil action for civil liability which is being filed either separately or filed together with the criminal action.
All right, so thank you, Ms. Banyas, for a very insightful discussion. Now, part of our knowing or learning about a particular law is also learning how it is being applied through a number of judicial decisions. So to enlighten us more, let's welcome Attorney Jaime to discuss about some jurisprudence in relation to our topic today.
Thank you, sir. Good day once again. To help us understand more about this Act, RA 7877, I will be discussing some jurisprudence related to this Act. The first case is Narvasa versus Sanchez, GR number 169449. Actually, tatlo sila dito na employees na nag-file ng complaints against sa kanilang municipal assessor, Benjamin Sanchez. Narvasa here is a senior bookkeeper, filed a case for sexual harassment against the municipal assessor Benjamin Sanchez Jr. The acts of Sanchez committed by respondents are against Mary Gay de la Cruz. He is giving notes saying, "I like you," and sending a text message which says, "Mary Gay, ang tamis ng halik mo." Also against Zinaida Gayaton, he is sending text messages such as, "Pauwi ka na ba sexy? I like you. Have a date with me. I slept and dreamed nice things about you." Lastly, against Teresa Narvasa, the respondent of this case, he pulled her towards him and attempted to kiss her. Among others, he would also whisper to the victim, "Oy, flawless, umanaw kamit gitan," while twice pinching her upper left arm near the shoulder in a slow manner. Furthermore, during a field trip, the respondent tried to kiss the victim. The mayor, Marivic Padilla, found respondent guilty for the 3 complaints of the sexual harassment. Pero yung umakyat po ng Supreme Court dito is yung case lang po ni Narvasa. Kasi yung sa dalawa na case, kay Gayaton at saka kay De La Cruz, yung penalty nila is reprimand and suspension. Yung kay Narvasa is dismissal from government service. So Sanchez appealed to the CSC. However, CSC affirmed the penalty of dismissal. However, upon appeal to the CA, the same court downgraded the offense to simple misconduct and meted the appeal to suspension for 1 day and 1 month. So the issue is whether or not Sanchez is guilty of sexual harassment. The Supreme Court held that yes, respondent here is guilty of sexual harassment, and the sexual harassment committed by Sanchez against Narvasa constitutes grave misconduct. It constitutes grave misconduct means it is intentional wrongdoing, or it is a deliberate violation of a rule or a law standard of behavior. To constitute an administrative offense, misconduct should relate to be connected with the performance of the official functions and duties of a public officer. The next case, Domingo versus Rayala, GR number 155831. It is a case involving a stenographer as the victim of the NLRC chairman as the perpetrator. The Supreme Court here enunciated that sexual harassment is an imposition of misplaced superiority, which is enough to dampen an employee's spirit and her capacity for advancement. It affects her sense of judgment, it changes her life. Thus, in holding and squeezing the victim's shoulders, running his fingers across his neck, and tickling her ear, having inappropriate conversations with her, giving her money allegedly for school expenses with a promise for future privileges, and making statements with unmistakable sexual overtones. All resound with defining clarity the unspoken request for sexual favor. Rayala here holds the exalted position of the NLRC chairman with a rank equivalent to the CA justice. Thus, it is not unavailing that rigid standards of conduct may be demanded of him. In the same case, Talents Davon versus Judge Arceo, this court upholds the liability of the herein respondent judge. The court said the actuations of respondent are aggravated by the fact that complainant is one of his subordinates over whom he exercises control and supervision. He being the executive judge, he took advantage of his position and power in order to carry out his lustful and lascivious desires. Instead of being in pro parentis over his subordinate employees, respondent was one who preyed on them, and he is taking advantage of his superior position. The last case, Digital versus Soriano. This case is an exemption. In sexual harassment cases, the acts complained of must be in consonance with human experience. So dapat suportado yung complaint mo doon sa actions ng nag-complain. The Director for Market and Communication sued her superiors, which were the Senior Vice President and Senior Executive Vice President. The woman filed complaint for sexual harassment 11 months after she tendered her resignation. The woman claimed that during a company party, while they were seated in sofa, one of the perpetrators crept his hand under a throw pillow and poked her vagina several times. She justified her failure to flee by claiming that she was hemmed by the arm of the sofa. Furthermore, she claimed that thereafter, when she was dancing with one of the perpetrators, the latter groped her breast and buttocks. O diba, pag sinusundot-sundot yung private parts mo, diba, as a natural reaction ng babae, diba, parang matulak mo siya or masampal mo siya, pero dito, parang wala siyang ginawa. Kaya in this case, sexual harassment charges was dismissed by the Supreme Court. The court did not give credence to the allegations of the woman and dismissed the charges of sexual harassment. The Supreme Court ratiocinated that if indeed the perpetrators performed the condemnable act, why didn't the woman slap the perpetrators and left the event? The Supreme Court further held that any woman in her right mind whose vagina had been earlier poked several times without her consent and against her will would, after liberating herself from the clutches of the person who offended her. So if indeed she was sexually harassed, her resignation would have been an effective vehicle for her raise. Instead, however, of raising it in her resignation letter, she even thanked the petitioner Severino. Again, this is contrary to human nature and experience. For if indeed petitioner Severino was her sexual harasser, she would have refrained from being cordial to him on her resignation. Any employee, male or female, may charge an employer or superior with sexual harassment, but the claim must be well substantiated. As reflected above, however, her claim does not pass the test of credibility. Thus, the court dismissed the charge of sexual harassment against Soriano. That would be all the cases. Next topic would be RA 11313. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Jaime, for taking your time in discussing the important cases to enlighten us more about this particular topic. Now, to introduce our next topic, I'd like to invite you again to watch another video that will give us a quick look of our next topic. So please watch the video.
Wala audio, sir.
No audio.
Na, naka-ano man ko. Naka-on akong mic. Ano man?
Nasa ano siya, bumalik siya sa the Safe Space Act
Okay.
slide. Oh.
Wait lang. Feel ko, share ko pa yun.
Pinirmahan na ng Pangulo kaya ganap ng batas ang Bawal Bastos o Safe Street and Public Spaces Act. Hinamo naman ng grupong Gabriela ang Pangulo na manguna sa pagsunod sa bagong batas. Umaksyon si Jenny Dongon.
Sa araw-araw na pagpasok ni Jackie sa parlor, lagi raw siyang nakakaranas ng pambabastos at pangusga.
Marami, bakla, ganon, bata o matanda, talagang pinabastos kami. Masakit pero nga lang, hindi ko na pinapatulan kasi mapaaway ka lang eh.
Kaya magandang balita raw para kay Jackie, naganap ng batas ang Bawal Bastos Bill o Safe Street and Public Spaces Act.
Kung binabastos kami na talagang masakit ang bastusan, pwede na namin sila ipabarangay o ano. Mas magandang ganon.
Sa ilalim ng batas, ipinagbabawal ang pagmumura, paninipol o catcalling, leering o malaswang pagtitig, stalking, sexual jokes, paglalabas ng pribadong bahagi ng katawan, panghihipo at negatibo at sexual na salita. May multang 1,000 piso at 12 oras na community service para sa first offense. Kailangan din nilang dumalo sa gender sensitivity seminar. Kulong na 6 hanggang 10 araw naman para sa second offense o multang 3,000 hanggang 30 araw na kulong at 10,000 pisong multa naman sa third offense. Hanggang kalahating milyong piso naman ang multa sa online sexual harassment, cyberstalking, invasion of privacy at harassment sa educational institution. Si Pangulong Duterte na siyang pumirma sa Bawal Bastos Law, madalas mabatikos sa isang umanay sexist remarks sa kanyang mga talumpati. Kaya may hamon sa kanya ang Gabriela.
Kailangan niya talagang i-account sa sarili niya yung mga kung paano niya sinasabi o paano siya nagsasalita on behalf, paano siya nagsasalita towards women, paano yung kanyang pagbibigay ng mga opinion yun. So, maganda ito kasi makita natin sa aktual, makita natin kung paano talaga niya yun ipapractice, no? Yung anong tawag dito, bawal ang bastos law.
Pero sagot ng palasyo,
you assume that the president is bastos, naging bastos. He never was bastos. When he cracks jokes, it was intended to make people laugh. Never to offend.
kung sa tingin daw ng iba ay nilabag ng Pangulong batas, maaari silang magsampa ng kaso. Yun nga lang, may immunity ang Pangulo. Umaaksyon, Jenny Dongon, News 5.
All right, very interesting video, huh? So without further ado, let's call on another council to discuss RA 11313, otherwise known as Safe Space Act or Bawal ang Bastos Law. Introducing to you Attorney Joey Ryan Hamito, and to help him with the discussion, once again, Attorney Vanius for the penalties. Guys, take it away.
Thank you, Sir Michael. So I'm going to discuss RA 11313. So on April 17, 2019, the Safe ito yun siya. So, this addresses gender-based sexual harassment in public areas such as streets, privately owned places open to public, and public utility vehicles, among others. And take note, kasali din yung nangyayari sa site online. Okay? So first, as what we have seen also kanina, punishable acts defined in RA 11313. So gender-based sexual harassment in street and public places. So as what we have seen, cursing, catcalling, leering, intrusive gazing, taunting, unwanted invitations, transphobic, homophobic, sexist slurs, persistent unwanted comments on one's appearance, relentless requests for one's personal details such as name, contact, social media details, use of words, gestures, actions that ridicule on the basis of sex, gender, or sexual orientation, identity, and or expression, including sexist, homophobic, and transphobic statements or slurs. The persistent telling of sexual jokes, use of sexual names, comments, and demands, and any statement that has made an invasion on a person's personal space or threatens the person's sense of personal safety. So let's give an example so that you can understand more what are these. So catcalling, for example, catcalling, this happens when someone or may isang tao, let's say si A, walking down the street, and then nakita siya ni B, and nakita ni B na maganda si Miss A. So ginawa ni B, na tinawag niya si Miss A, sila, Miss, ang ganda mo. Kiss naman, o ganon. That's an example of catcalling. So, as what we have discussed earlier, hindi lang ito nangyayari sa streets, but also to privately owned places, remember that are open to public, and even in public utility vehicles, this happens. So, intrusive gazing, taunting, o yan, yung pagtitig mo ng sa isang tao, it's also considered punishable act under RA number 113. Comments about being in relation to gender, let's say, as what we have seen in the video. For example, we have CA is a gay person employed in a company, and instead of being respectful to the employee, what you did or what everyone else is doing is that tinatawag sa bakla, marumi, maganon, which is in relation to being a transphobic statements. So, Ms. Marian, can you please provide us the penalty for these actions?
So, Attorney Hamito, under this particular provision, the penalty for the acts or omission committed in violation of this law, for the first offense, the accused will be made to pay for a fine of 1,000 pesos and community service of 12 hours, inclusive of attendance to a gender sensitivity seminar. For the second offense, arresto menor, 6 to 10 days or a fine of 3,000 pesos. And for the third offense, he will be made to suffer arresto menor or 11 to 30 days or a fine of 10,000 pesos.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Marian. So, next, other than the previous discussed, these are other punishable acts under RA number 11313. So, making offensive body gestures at someone, exposing private parts for the sexual gratification of the perpetrator with the effect of demeaning, harassing, threatening, or intimidating the offended party, including flashing of private parts, public masturbation, groping, and similar lewd sexual actions. So, for example, ito, for example, flashing of private parts. So, in the States, there are parties, mag-ano punta tayo sa ibang place, sa States, kasi sa Philippines, bawal. So, in the States, usually, pag meron sila yung mga summer parties, yan, flashing of private parts is normal sa ilaha. I mean, normal sa kanila. Pero pag ginawa mo yan dito sa Pilipinas, you'll be punished under RA number 11313. Another example, groping. What is groping? Just imagine when you are in a grocery store, picking up fruit, let's say pomelo. Di ba, pag pumili ka ng pomelo, kailangan mo hawakan kung tama ba siya or hinog ba siya or ano, and then you have to smell it. O groping, yan yung ginagawa nyo sa fruits nyo. Groping yan. But in this case, in relation to RA number 11313, groping is touching or doing what you do with the fruits to the person's private parts, or even kahit ano lang, part lang ng skin niya or ng almost, or let's say sa kanyang breast part, yan ang groping. So for the penalty, Attorney Marian, what are the penalties for this kind of punishable acts?
So, Attorney Joe, we can see that medyo serious mas serious to na provision compare nung previous. So for the first offense, under this particular provision, the accused will be made to pay for a fine of 10,000 pesos. Mas higher ang penalty niya kaysa nung previous. And community service of 12 hours inclusive of attendance to a gender sensitivity seminar. For the second offense, the accused will be made to suffer an arresto menor or 11 to 30 days of imprisonment or a fine of 15,000 pesos. For the third offense, arresto mayor or an imprisonment of 1 month and 1 day to 6 months and a fine of 20,000 pesos.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Marian. So, if you can observe, mas tumaas na. So, let's move on. So, stalking, any of the acts mentioned in 11A or 11B when accompanied by touching, pinching, or brushing against the body of the offended person. Any touching, pinching, or brushing against the genitalia, face, arms, anus, groin, breast, inner thighs, buttocks, or any part of the victim's body, even when not accompanied by acts mentioned in 11A and 11B, are punishable as acts under RA number 11313. For example, Attorney Marian and Attorney Michael, that inside a public utility vehicle, let's say a jeepney, naunang sumakay si Ma'am Marian, Attorney Marian, and then sumunod na sumakay si Attorney Michael. And not knowing na they are working in the same company. So they are working in the same company. So, and then hindi natin alam na ito pala si Attorney Marian merong gusto kay Attorney Michael. So alam na niya lahat ng details about kay Attorney Michael. Kaya alam din niya anong oras sumasakay ng jeep si Attorney Michael. So that's considered stalking. And ang isa pa, as you can see sa description, any touching or pinching or brushing against the genitalia. So genitalia is very delikado in a public utility vehicle. So ang pininch lang niya, ang arms lang ni Attorney Michael. Pero since there are previous siguro na mga actions na ginawa niya that is considered stalking, under na yan siya ng punishable acts under RA number 11313. So for the penalty sa dito na part is a lot higher than the previous one. So Attorney Marian.
Yes, Attorney Joey, a lot higher talaga kasi it involve it is accompanied by touching, pinching, or brushing against the body of offended person. So for the penalty under this particular provision, the accused will be made to suffer an arresto menor or 11 to 30 days of imprisonment or a fine of 30,000 pesos. First offense pa lang yan, provided that it includes attendance in a gender sensitivity seminar. So for the second offense, he will be made to suffer an arresto mayor or 1 month and 1 day of imprisonment or a fine of 50,000 pesos. And for the third offense, arresto mayor in its maximum period or a fine of 100,000 pesos.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Marian. So next slide are also penalties. But this time, these are penalties based on gender-based online sexual harassment. So, Attorney Marian.
So in this provision, the penalty provided by law is prison correctional in its medium period or a fine of not less than 100,000 but not more than 500,000 pesos or both at the discretion of the court. And the penalty is next higher in degree.
All right, thank you. So as we have discussed earlier, punishable acts under RA number 11313 is not only made in public utility vehicles, it can also be done online. So ito yun siya ha. So based on this, gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace and educational or training institutions, the penalties, Attorney Marian.
For the penalties, in case of gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace and educational or training institution, it is administrative penalties as provided for by the Employers Committee on Decorum and Investigation and without prejudice to other applicable criminal violations and penalties.
Thank you. And the penalty for failure of employers or school heads to take action on reported acts of gender-based sexual harassment committed in the workplace or in the educational institution under RA number 11313, Attorney Marian.
Under this particular provision, Attorney Joey, the fine is not less than 5,000 pesos rather, nor more than 10,000 pesos.
Thank you, Attorney Marian, and that is all, Attorney Michael, for our topic.
Thank you, Attorneys Ibanez and Attorney Hamito. So local government also units are mandated to pass ordinances localizing the applicability of the State Space Act. So with regard to online cases, the task falls on the anti-cybercrime group of the PNP. So you guys would know where to file your complaints through these agencies. So the Metro Manila Development Authority, the Philippine National Police, and the Women and Children Protection Desk, or WCPD, of the PNP have been given also tasked to apprehend violators of the law. So those are the agencies or the government agencies that you can you can go to for your complaints. Also, as an expanded coverage, in addition to penalizing acts of gender-based sexual harassment in public places, the Safe Space Act also expands the 1995 Anti-Sexual Harassment Act. So formally, sexual harassment was only punished when committed by someone who has authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over the victim. So now, under the Safe Space Act, as committed between peers, by a subordinate to a superior officer, by a student to a teacher, or by a trainee to a trainer, are also now being covered as punishable sexual harassment acts of this new act. All right, so thank you, councils. That ends our presentation today. Indeed, we are very privileged to be graced with these knowledge experts. Oh, sorry, knowledge experts. So that ends our presentation today. Thank you, councils. Indeed, we are very privileged to be graced with these knowledgeable legal experts in the field. I hope that through this discussion, you'll be able to appreciate the importance of having a safe environment as we continue to build a strong nation, not just for our beloved families, but also for the future generations to come. So I'd like to end this with a quote from Nelson Mandela. Safety and security don't just happen. They're just results of collective consensus and public investment. We owe our children, the most vulnerable citizens in our country, a little free of violence and fear. So once again, thank you, and may you have a pleasant afternoon, everyone. Stay safe.